It's not here. I don't know why. You open this.
So as you dig that out, would I be right to assume then that, so your budgeting was based on what? Now that we're going to have...
Chair, I would like Paul to take that comment because he was part of the team that did the budget in 2020.
Okay,
Thank
yes,
you.
Paul.
Chair and members, like my CEO said, the planning and operations were guided by the business and implementation plan. So the budgeting in the airline starts with coming up with the operating schedule. The operating schedule shows details of which routes you want to operate, how many times in a week, which aircraft type you are going to deploy, and when you are going to open what route. So in coming up with that, it is driven by the capacity or the available equipment, to be specific, the aircraft you have. So in 2020, 2021, the year under audit, we, at the time of the budgeting, we did not have, we had only 4 bombardiers. So we had, and the planning was to get the Airbus, the first Airbus in December 2020 and the second in Feb 2021, and they came on schedule. So when we were doing the budget, and now I will go to the shortfall, we envisaged that when the Airbuses come, we'll immediately deploy them to the long-haul routes which they are supposed to be flying. So our planning had a number of routes, about 18. But in actual sense, when now the Airbus came, there had to be a process of having it certified to the license to operate it, which took long. So basically, the whole of 2020-2021, we did not fly the Airbus, whereas they had come, because we were going through a certification process which took long up to October 2021. So that explains, one, why we have a shortfall in the revenue performance. Because from the Auditor General's query, which is correct, the airline had planned to collect 304 billion internally generated revenue, but only collected 48 billion. So that explains, my explanation is because we had planned to use the Airbus on the long haul, we did not. And when you go specifically to the specific schedule, we operated 31% of the planned schedule. So if we are to compare the actual operated schedule with the performance shortfall, we are off by 15% if you compare the operated schedule with the generated revenue. But from the planning, we had put a bigger figure because of the anticipation that we would operate all the 18 routes. The other reason why we couldn't perform according to the planned budget, you all remember in March 2020, we had an airspace closure due to COVID. So during the planning time, which happened in May and June, we all expected that we'd be back in the air effective August 2020. So our budget figures start from August to June 2021. But the airspace was opened in October. So we have a bulk of 2-month planned revenue that we were unable to generate due to the limitation of the airspace closure. Also, when the airspace opened, most countries were limiting the frequencies we were meant to fly in their countries as they were monitoring the post-COVID situation. So we flew less than we had planned, in addition to the fact that our assumptions in planning the post-COVID era were based on the pre-COVID, which was not correct. No airline, whether regional or international, had the visibility of what would happen after COVID. So the whole industry dynamics changed, and we did not have visibility of the number of passenger travel that could happen after COVID. In fact, Chair and members, that's why reviewing the strategic plan and strategic direction is very important at this stage, because the dynamics that were applicable when the business and implementation plan was being made are different. To date, the aviation industry is at about 75% of the travel capacity that was happening pre-COVID. So, Chair and members, those are the reasons why we did not perform to the projected budget. Thank you.
What would you say, and maybe this would come through your strategic plan, but we want to have a grip of some kind of
happening. The team could not retrieve the documentation that was explaining the situation at the time. There are not many. Of the entire report, there are like 2 issues which the documentation then would have explained the situation, but was never available to the team. So when we were preparing for this, we retrieved those. So for such isolated cases, Chair and members would request that the record, if possible, is corrected, because the situation at the time could have been supported, but the documents could not be traced, and subsequently we got them. But for issues like stock, we admit that at the time it was the case. Thank you.
Yeah, but you see, the Auditor General is the one mandated to do the auditing, not COSASE. COSASE is not, we are not auditors. We have audit.
Maybe briefly explain to why were you terminated, why were you suspended? Because some of us, we are not aware. We are just hearing of suspended.
You see, unfortunately for the CEO, she's seated next to me, so whenever she whispers something, I hear. And she's saying it is not part of this. Madam CEO, at the start, in my preamble, I said that, she will say, well, I didn't appoint myself. But at least we have that on record. We shall take it up eventually with whoever appointed her. Because for her, even if she had just senior 6, she would say, but well, for me, I was appointed. So, it might not be her fault. Yeah? We shall take it up with whoever appointed her, but for us, we note it as a concern that there is a certain qualification that is required. Why is it that that qualification was not considered? And of course, everything else we discussed yesterday, the appointment and all of that. I want to suggest, colleagues, that we now look at the other issues, the other CVs of the other documents. Yes, Honorable Mzali. Just hold on.
Chair, we had raised very pertinent issues and they were not answered. I had actually thought
to chair, there was the NPA, there was the Minister of Finance, there was the Minister of Works, and a team of experts which developed the business plan in conjunction with NPA and in line with government plans and national development program. So that started off the company, the airline, until now that we are now moving to develop a strategic plan which will guide the continuation and development of the airline further. Thanks.
So what deadline are we looking at now that you're working on a strategic plan? What deadline? What are the timelines?
Our deadline is up to September 15th.
September 15th.
To have completed it.
Was the board expenditure, which was over and above projection. Yeah, so a review showed that the board had projected to spend $69,622 US dollars. That's about 262 million. But eventually, the board spent 195,956 US dollars. That's about 738 million. So the board spent over and above the projection of 476 million. So what happens? Because if you budget to spend 262 million, but you end up spending 738 million, there is a problem. What happens along the way? Madam Accounting Officer, that's to you.
Suspended. Which year was that? You were terminated. Which year was that? 2019.
Through you, Chair. Who attended the exit meeting of the team here?
You're speaking off record, Madam.
As among the team here, I was, plus the internal auditors and myself. But they had also joined, I think, a month. Both of them had only, yes. Both of us had joined just a month, but we attended.
Honorable Chair, excuse me. Madam CEO Jennifer, can you...
If I mentioned before that when you start a new route, it takes 3 years to reach maturity. If you've done your homework right, it's a good route, you've done your feasibility studies and everything. And in those 3 years, you start on the lower side and keep improving. Remember, when you're operating a route, whether you carry a full board or half board, the cost of operation remains the same. So, this financial year that is under review by this committee today was looking at an operation that was smaller. I will check the records in terms of...
What I interested in, so that we move quickly, is not because we are reviewing 2020, 2021. I'm asking you about the profit loss level for 2021, 2022. You're using so many words to give me a response.
I wanted to reach the answer, but the loss is higher. The reason being we have started new routes and they are starting on the lower side.
How much is the total loss?
In the unaudited figures, I think we have 200 and above 200 million. Above 200 million.
200 million?
Billion, sorry, billion.
Above
yes.
200 billion?
Yes, for the last year.
So we are auditing 2020, 2021. So now he's talking about 2021, 2022. That's yes. Above 200 billion.
Yes, reason. Yes, because that's why I started by giving a background that when you start a new route, and we've started many in this financial year, you start on the lower end, then when you mature and start consolidating, the bottom line keeps improving.
What's the exact figure? You would know. You can't just say above 200 billion. You're the head of finance, director.
Sure.
You're consulting your CEO on whether to tell me the truth.
No, Chair, the numbers are not yet audited, so that's
so where
why
have you got 200 billion from?
I have the provisional numbers.
That's what I'm asking about. That's what I'm interested in.
But that's on air. That's on air. As long as you increase
It's something that needs a layman's language. We don't want to be too much technical. You say, when you start a new route, you need about 3 years maturity. To me, which I am saying, is it always the case? Or it is the demand that drives you to full board and the services that you provide together with the marketing? Because if, for instance, you have come with a new plane between Entebbe and Nairobi, and it is the services outweighing Kenya Airways and what have you.
Members, through you, Chair. So when we received the Airbuses in 2020 and 2021, that was December 2020 and 2021, we immediately applied to have them certified. Now, this process normally takes a period of 90 days from the time you apply right through to the time they validate all your processes, procedures, and existence of personnel, qualified personnel to operate these aircraft. It is unfortunate that during that time of that application, a lot of the standards that we had anticipated and we benchmarked on to certify the aircraft changed, and these were provided by our counterparts in the civil aviation. Now, because of that, it led to a lot of extensions in the certification process, because this is not an activity we do alone. So when we do these activities, we do them in conjunction with our authority, who approve that what we have provided to them is acceptable. Now, about that time, they presented a whole new set of standards that we had to use, and considering this is a new and advanced aircraft to this region. Now, that is what led to most of the delays that ended up leading us to have this aircraft certified in August of that year. And then finally, we were able to start flying in October. Now, what my colleague from finance did not mention is that even after certifying, we had to go out and create the stations and get all the stations ready. And these stations that the Airbus is currently flying to, we could not do it until we had the official authorization from our civil aviation. In a summary, that is it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed.
As we come up with all ideas to bring up our revenues, we must manage our costs. And we've been going through a lot of meetings back and forth as an executive, the management team. Where do we manage our costs? And usually the costs will be operational. There will be costs in maintenance. At the moment, we spend about 14 billion a year, kind of, in maintenance costs. But if we start our own AMO, which is the approved maintenance organization, then we will be able to maintain our own aircraft. We'll be in control of our own engineering structures. So the key thing is to manage our costs. Then if we manage our numbers in terms of recruitment and don't go beyond a certain number, because the establishment audit will assist us in knowing who goes where and what are the profiles. That will will enable us to watch our wage bill, because at the moment, much as we are looking at the losses, just about 19% is what the salary is, but the most of it comes with fuel, maintenance costs, ground handling, catering, airport charges, so that crux of the matter is for us to be able to manage our costs. And once we manage our costs, then the revenues can be felt, and the loss will be minimized. Thank you.